Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Deserts of Plenty. My name is Ralph. Deserts of Plenty is a podcast about just understanding things in life. We are awash in calories, but we are lacking in nutrition, awash in information, but lacking knowledge, and awash in experiences, but lacking connection. The more easier our world gets, the more convenient, the more accessible, expedient, the sadder and more depressed everyone seems to become. I was reading, Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights, which is an interesting read. If you're a fan of his, I definitely recommend it. I like it. I like that I understand him better. And it's full of things that I agree with. But I was expecting to like it more. Anyway, but he did have one. Well, he's had a lot of really interesting comments, but the one he had today was, or one that I read today is, he was talking about spending time with a family, very like a poverty family living in poverty in Africa. At least there was more joy in this house with 9 kids and absolutely nothing than he's seen in most homes of affluent people. And yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to me. Again, not to go back to this tired old thing that money can't buy happiness, because certainly a certain amount of money for most people, especially in this part of the world, will let you overcome some hardships for sure. So I'm not saying that, but what I am saying that the world has become, in this part of the world, has become too convenient, like the accessibility of food, fast food, processed foods, highly super processed food. The standard American diet, standard Canadian diet is now mostly made up of highly processed food that has been changed in order to make us crave more of it, which segues nicely into what I wanted to talk about today. I did an episode on unknown unknowns, which I'm a huge fan of, because we'll never exhaust all the unknown unknowns in the world, and also the unknown unknowns about ourselves, which to me are the more interesting ones. Well, I mean, they're both interesting, but what are the things about ourselves that we don't know that we don't know? Like why certain things trigger us, or, what conditioning do we have? And this is one of my favorite examples of conditioning. Um, because I think we're born with very few conditioned responses. Like the sucking condition is a reflex that is conditioned in us. Uh, if you've ever watched a baby nurse, it's amazing, beautiful, and magic. But if you rub a nipple on the outside of the cheek, the baby, like a brand new 2-hour-old, still got the new car smell infant, will turn their head in the direction of that nipple and open their mouth and latch on. And it's a beautiful thing to behold. Absolutely. But there is a conditioned response that you almost certainly have if you're a driver. And even if you're not, I'm sure you've seen this one on TV a lot. And it's and I like to use this example of driving down a city street and crowded, like it's a residential street. There's cars parked on each side, of a lot of room, and all of a sudden the ball comes bouncing out in front of your car. What do you do? And people say, "Oh, look for the kid." Well, yeah, because you're expecting a kid, but most people, and this is what I have done because it's happened to me, is my foot is on the brake before I barely register the ball in my head as a thing, right? Like my foot is moving independent of my conscious thought. Like I don't, like obviously my brain has told my foot to move, but it bypasses my decision-making process. I don't have to think about it. It's just, it happens. And that's a conditioned response. We've been conditioned to move like that. And in fact, it would take a big amount of will to overcome something that is a learned behavior, and if you play an instrument, well, I mean, or even on a keyboard, like we know this, like your body knows where the L is, even if you have to actually think about it in your head. Like it's, if you, I think if someone asks you, okay, just do the top row of the keys. Let's do the middle row because everybody knows QWERTY. The middle row of the letters from left to right. It's hard to do that without evoking, moving your fingers and going like, oh, what is that one? Okay. See, I don't even know. Is it ASDF? I think it's ASDFG. But then H, J. I think I might be right, but I don't want to look. But I do have to think about it, right? But my fingers wouldn't have to think about it. They would know instinctively where those things are. And these are conditioned responses. They're in our bodies. Anyway, one of the ways to overcome, if you want to, or at least have a look at conditioning, is to investigate unknown unknowns. And that's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of them. And also today I was reminded because I learned something today that I didn't know. I didn't know this. And I will bet you also didn't know this and didn't know you didn't know it. Or you might, I don't know. But again, these always blow my mind. I'll get to that. I'll get to the unknown in a second. But another reason that I love them is it reminds me that the journey of learning, the journey of enlightenment, of becoming better will never end. And that's a good thing. I mean, of course, like my goal, as I always say, is to become like Jesus or Buddha. Well, my ego becomes, well, infinite, but not in the egotistical sense, but in the sense of myself becomes so big. And not because, and not again, in an egotistical sense of like me. But when you are just comfortable with who you are and confident, nothing bothers you. You just like Jesus, right? Or Buddha. They just exist. And whatever they're doing, they're like, this is what we're doing. Great. I love it. Doesn't matter. Taking your hands off the wheel of life and let the universe drive, and whatever happens, cool. This is nice. I like this as much as possible. Now, of course, always comes with that caveat of like, of course, I'm not talking about your mortality, your health, and, the life and health of those very close to you. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about the usual sort of like ups and downs of most everyday living, missing your train, hitting a red light, plans get changed at the last minute, have a date, they cancel, those kinds of things. Oh, canceling. Okay. Rescheduling. Not a problem. It's all good. That's what I'm talking about. So anyway, so today I learned something that I did not know before. And that is, and drum roll, no. So we all know like the body temperature of a human being, it's 37 degrees Celsius, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you're like me, you thought it's always been thus. It has not. It's not. In the last 120 or 130 years, in North America, again, and this is and I haven't investigated this further, but my sense would be in populations, whether we call them industrialized populations, affluent populations, the average body temperature has dropped about a full degrees Fahrenheit or about half a degree Celsius, roughly. I think it's dropped a little bit more in men than women. But not not drastically different, and I think those, because, the way science was done always on, white men, it may be just because of that, is because they weren't measuring it in women until much later. And so, but something like every decade, body temperature in the affluent, well, this is America, and I assume Canada, and I assume, Western Europe, but I don't know, has dropped, like a full degree Fahrenheit. So 98.6, it was 99.6. And if it's 37 degrees Celsius, it was 37 and a half. And, that blew my mind, and it blows my mind. And of course, the question is, why? What's going on? And, I'm tempted to just end there and let you think about it. And if you want to know the answer, to go and investigate it. I don't know the answer. I don't know that anybody knows the answer. The theory that I put forward, and I'm going to do a podcast on this very soon, is that the fault lies with our diet, or the fault. Yeah, I guess fault, or the reason, the explanation lies in our diet. Because another thing that I've recently learned is that fructose, that sugar that we eat far too much of, in our body, can only be metabolized by our liver. and is basically, when you introduce it into your body, is, other than the effects, the not hallucinating, the mind altering effects, is basically like alcohol. There's very little difference between fructose and alcohol. It's just, it's one more step along the chain of oxidizing sugar. Um, Alcohol's next. Anyway, uh, fructose is a nutrient. No, I shouldn't say it. It's not a nutrient. It is a source of energy that we consume, that actually uh, interacts with our mitochondria, which is the energy producing organelles in our cells. They create the ATP, which drives all our processes, or the vast majority of the processes in our body. And uh, yeah, it's the only one that will suppress the function of mitochondria. The purpose of which, and this is, based on our historical evolution, not common, not now, is to keep us hungry at a lower energy state so that we continue to eat. And the reason that is, all you need to do is look at brown bears in the fall, who gorge themselves on berries full of fructose, and they don't ever stop eating because their goal is to put on as much fat as possible to get through the winter. So that's why brown bears put on so much fat. So anybody says, it's fat that makes you fat, just look at brown bears, man. They eat berries, blueberries full of fructose and fruit sugar, and they get immensely fat so that they can winter sleep. Interesting fact, bears do not hibernate. Hibernation requires lowering the body temperature, slowing the heart rate and stuff. Bears just sleep through the winter. So it's not really hibernation in the sense, but it's winter sleeping. It's fascinating. Fructose reduces mitochondrial efficiency on purpose so that we will be hungry and eat more, which is one reason why people who are, and I'm not here to say one diet is superior to another, because it seems most likely that we're all different, and some of us will do better on a low carb diet and some will do better on a low fat diet. And by better, I mean, it's you're more adapted to one or the other. Not everybody is the same. One diet does not fit all. But when we tell people, like, get away from fat so you don't put on fat, we tend to just eat more calories because fructose makes you hungry, because that's sending the signal to your body that winter is coming, fruit is abundant, eat as much as you can and get ready for the long winter. But, we, in this part of the world anyway, are preparing for a winter that never comes. So we're constantly hungry, foraging, eating, putting on weight, and a winter that never comes. Anyway, unknown unknowns. So interesting and powerful that every time I discover one, I almost have to sit down and just catch my breath because they take my breath away. Anyway, that's my episode for today. This is unknown. No, this is not unknown unknowns. That's what I wanted to call the podcast. That was my original idea to call it, and but I Googled it, and of course there were a few already called that, and most had to do with extraterrestrials or ghosts or spirits or things in that realm that are how do I even describe that? I don't even know anymore how I would describe it. That's not what this is about. This is about living better lives, really, or happier lives, more fulfilled lives. Getting in touch with information that's not accessible, that's not out there, because most people are just trying to sell you something, and I'm not trying to sell anything. I just want to talk about this stuff because I find it fascinating and it's helped me so much, and just want to really get it down and maybe one day write a book. Who knows? Anyway, thanks so much for listening. I hope you have a great day. Take care, everybody. Bye.